Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unlock something really special. We're going to reveal the profound, hidden depth behind words that, honestly, many of you probably say every single day. Look, if you've ever felt like your daily routines or rituals have just become a bit, automatic, well, this explainer is going to completely shift your perspective. We are exploring the majestic meanings of two divine names, Alhamid and Almajid. Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to just reflect on your daily routine for a second. Specifically, think about the very end of your formal prayers. Right before you conclude, you sit down, you recite the Tashahhud, and you send blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad. It's a beautifully peaceful moment, right? But have you ever stopped to analyze the exact words you're using to seal that prayer? Like, why those specific words? To really wrap our heads around this, we've got to look at a famous tradition, the Hadith of Ka'b bin Ujra. His companions actually asked the Prophet how exactly they should send blessings upon him. And the Prophet replied with the formula we now know so well, concluding with, "Indeed, you are praiseworthy, or Hamid, and glorious, or Majid." Notice how these two specific names of Allah are uniquely paired right here at the absolute climax of the daily prayer. There's a profound reason for this pairing, and honestly, unraveling it is going to change how you pray.
But before we really unpack the names themselves, we need a quick ground rule, a theological anchor. As the scholar Ibn Uthaymin so beautifully explained, when we study the names and attributes of Allah, we follow the methodology of the early generations. What that means is, we take these names directly from the sources, the Quran and the authentic sayings of the Prophet. We don't distort their meaning, we don't deny them, and we definitely don't try to imagine some physical equivalent. We just accept their absolute perfection. So with that solid foundation in place, let's look at our first name.
Section 1, Al-Hamid, the praiseworthy. Shifting from the familiar rhythm of our daily prayer into some deep theological definitions, the crucial point here is understanding what Al-Hamid actually means. It's not just someone who happens to receive praise. No, according to classical linguistic and theological sources, Al-Hamid is the one who is inherently praiseworthy on all accounts and in literally all circumstances. Whether we're experiencing times of absolute joy or times of severe hardship, he is praised. Why? Because his actions never ever deviate from absolute perfection, absolute wisdom, justice, and boundless mercy. He is perfectly praiseworthy in his essence, his names, and his actions. The Quran actually captures this dynamic perfectly in Surah Fatir, verse 15. It says, "O mankind, you are those in need of Allah, while Allah is the free of need, the praiseworthy." Think about the massive contrast here. Human beings, we kind of need praise to feel validated, right? But Allah's praiseworthiness doesn't depend on us at all. He is completely, absolutely free of need. Even if no human being ever uttered a single word of thanks, he remains entirely and infinitely Al-Hamid. Our praise doesn't elevate him. Actually, the act of praying him elevates us. All right, moving right along to section 2, Al-Majid, the glorious. Taking that momentum from absolute praise and expanding it into boundless glory, let's look at the linguistic root of Al-Majid, which is Majd. Scholars like Al-Raghib point out that it fundamentally denotes vastness. It's all about expansiveness and generosity, limitless honor, and the absolute greatness of divine attributes. So, if Al-Hamid means his qualities are perfect, Majd means the extent of that perfection is unimaginably vast. It's a word that captures the sheer, awe-inspiring scale of his supreme majesty and endless giving. And to help us conceptualize just how vast this is, the Quran pairs this word with the greatest of all creations. In Surah Al-Buruj, verse 15, Allah is described as the owner of the glorious throne. Now, the throne of Allah is described in Islamic texts as a creation so phenomenally large that our entire universe, everything we know, is like a tiny ring thrown into a massive, endless desert in comparison to it. Just let that sink in for a second. By connecting the name Al-Majid to the boundless, unimaginable expanse of the throne, it paints this truly awe-inspiring picture. The physical vastness of the throne is just a reflection of the infinite, boundless glory of Al-Majid. Section 3, a perfectly paired praise. Now, what's really interesting is how conceptually complementary these two ideas are. You see, these two names aren't just paired in our prayers, they're actually paired directly in the Quran. In Surah Hud, when the angels are speaking to Prophet Ibrahim's household, they say, "The mercy of Allah and his blessings be upon you, people of the house. Indeed, he is praiseworthy and glorious." The great scholar Ibn Qayyim highlighted this brilliant synergy. Conceptually, think of it like this. Al-Hamid represents the qualitative perfection, like a flawless, brilliant diamond. Al-Majid represents the quantitative vastness, like an endless, powerful ocean.
Together they form the absolute ultimate complete description of divine majesty, perfection in quality, infinite in quantity. And that brings us right back to why we use these exact names at the end of our prayers. In the Salats, we're asking Allah to grant the Prophet Muhammad the highest praise, honor, and glory. So to ensure our request is answered, we invoke the very names that perfectly embody those exact concepts. We are essentially saying, O Allah, you who are the source of all perfect praise, Alhamid, and all boundless glory, Almajid, bestow that praise and glory upon your messenger. It's literally the perfect theological seal to a really profound request. Let's move to Section 4, Scholarly Insights on Praise. Let's deepen this even further, because traditional Islamic scholars have spent centuries reflecting on the exact nature of praising Allah, and their insights are just truly eye-opening. For instance, the renowned scholar Ibn Taymiyyah makes this brilliant and absolutely crucial distinction. He explains that there are two distinct types of praise. The first is praise for the blessings bestowed upon us. This is essentially gratitude, or shukr. You get a new job, you're healthy, the sun is shining, and you praise Allah. Makes sense. But the second, higher level of praise is praising Allah for His inherent perfection and majestic attributes, completely regardless of what we personally receive. True understanding of Al-Hamid means you don't just praise Him during those sunny days. You praise Him because He is, in His very essence, perfectly praiseworthy at all times. Finally, Section 5, Living with the Names and looking at the practical impact. So how does all this theological knowledge actually change us? Because look, learning about Allah's names isn't just some academic exercise. It's meant to fundamentally transform our daily lives. To illustrate this, let me tell you this incredible, highly descriptive story from an authentic hadith narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet described how Allah has special angels whose sole duty is to roam the streets and paths of the earth, actively searching for gatherings where people are remembering Allah. When they find such a gathering, they call out to one another, "Come to what you are looking for." And they surround these believers with their wings, stacking all the way to the lowest heaven. The story continues with this magnificent dialogue between Allah and these angels. Allah asks them, even though He obviously already knows, "What are my servants saying?" The angels reply with absolute reverence, declaring they are glorifying you, engaging in tamjid, and praising you, engaging in tamid. They are actively living the reality of Al-Majid and Al-Hamid. And the angels add, if they saw you, they would be even more intense in their worship and even more intense in their tamid and tamid. Recognizing these names directly drives the heart to intense, loving worship. And this brilliantly illustrates a point made by the great exegete Al-Qurtubi. He noted that knowing Allah's Al-Hamid and Al-Majid is actually a call to action for us. It requires three things from us practically. First, we have to acknowledge His absolute praise in all life circumstances, good or bad. Second, we have to actively cultivate praiseworthy traits, or akhlaq, within our own character. And third, we must perform beautiful, noble actions. Basically, we honor the praiseworthy by striving to be praiseworthy in our own conduct. We've covered a ton of ground today, from the daily prayer to the vastness of the glorious throne, to their beautiful pairings in the Quran, and those amazing reports of the roaming angels. So I want to leave you with this one lingering thought. The next time you sit down, right at the quiet end of your prayer, and your lips form the words, Innaka Hamidun Majid, indeed, you are praiseworthy and glorious, how is that moment going to feel, now that you know the true infinite depth of what you are saying? Keep that in mind for your very next prayer. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep seeking that deeper understanding.